Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's episode we're taking a look at Scopemate's NVS20 unit. Also coming up on the channel, I've been out with the keeper roost shooting. Oh my god! Myself and Dwayne met up for a socially distanced walk-up day towards the end of the season. Plus we also had a flight on a duck pond.
Stay.
It helps if you take the stay.
Well,
hey guys, welcome back to the channel and thank you for tuning in. That's right, today's video we're taking a closer look at the NVS20 from Scopemate. It looks like a pard, it's got the kind of head-up display that I like about the night sight, but is it any good? It's certainly very cheap. Is it worth the money? I'm going to give you my no holds barred review on this thing. It certainly has some good points, but it also has some bad. You'll get to see me taking this out in the daytime to see what the daytime recording's like, as well as the nighttime, and I even had a chance to take out a couple of rabbits with it as well. But before we have a look at the recording capabilities, let's have a little look and see what's included in the box. There are two models of Scopemate available, the NVS20 and the NVS30. Both models conform to the European safety standard, and both come supplied with the same contents in the box. A relatively comprehensive user manual with some decent imagery telling you and showing you how to install and properly use this product. A nice little touch is that they supply you with some electrical tape that you can wind around your scope to prevent any damage occurring from wear and tear, taking the unit on and off. It comes supplied with a micro USB cable as well as two different sized inserts for the scope mount that fit around the ocular lens on your scope. When you take it out the packaging, you'll notice that the casing of the unit is made of a relatively firm plastic. It actually feels quite well made. The buttons are very similarly laid out to that of the PAR 007. The built-in IR illuminator has 3 different power settings and is zoomable. It's powered by a single 18650 nippleless battery which goes in positive end first. Underneath the rubber housing you will find your micro USB port and your SD card slot. Just to note, don't put your card in facing down because you could lose the card internally in the unit, and that is something you will need to purchase separately, a maximum of a 64GB. The underside of the unit houses the focus wheel, that's so you can get the crosshairs nicely in focus. It only takes a quarter turn to actually mount the Scopemate on the rifle with its bayonet fitting, and the depth of the scope attachment itself is quite deep. That's not me trying to mate it, that's me trying to show you that it's got a half decent amount of eye relief, so I'm expecting to see a good amount of my crosshair. Simply add the Scopemate and pair them up, tighten up the collar by turning it clockwise, and just make sure the crosshairs are then finally in tune using the focus wheel on the underside of the unit. A quick press of the right hand menu key will bring up a relatively straightforward and intuitive menu. Please make sure you remember to format your SD card. You can do that on screen and in the unit before you start recording any footage. Right, let's have a look and see what this thing's like in the day before we actually get out and use it at night time. So this particular daytime session was filmed with the unit mounted to my Fox-in rifle and the Hawk Frontier scope. This target is 100 yards downrange. One thing I've noticed on screen is the images look a little narrower. If you check out that concrete block there, it actually looks broader in real life than it does on screen. Nevertheless, the quality of the footage during the playback is very good indeed. This here was around 33 yards. One feature I really did like, and I would have loved to have had on my night sight, was the ability to play back the footage I just recorded on the little screen and watch it back in the field. You could watch it as a slideshow. You can therefore delete that single clip, or simply just play it back, just like I'm doing now. Couple of nights later, and I actually get to see in the exact same position what it's like to use at night time. That's 100 yards down there, and you can see that quite clearly. Press record. You may notice that it was only on the IR setting 2 there, so there is another setting to make it a little bit more powerful, but in that area in particular it just seemed to white it out quite a bit on the trees. What I do think is, though, as a spotter, it will be perfectly adequate for rats and rabbits at relatively close ranges. Here I recorded 3 hares at exactly 99 yards through my thermal, and you can pretty much pick them out and the eye shine quite well, again using it as a spotter. That's pretty much the maximum distance it can be used at. Right, let's have a little look and see what it looks like through the rifle at night time. So this is looking down the same bits, that's 100 yards. Zoom. This is just the IR of the unit itself. Again, you can focus the beam in a little bit, and if you're going to use the scope's zoom capabilities, then I would suggest that you do that, as when you zoom in, the scope loses its natural ability to gather light. You can of course add an additional IR, which will help. One thing you can see on screen here is the IR unit, because it's situated on top of the rifle. When you reach up to use the zoom on your scope, you end up blacking out the picture temporarily, which can be a little annoying. So if you do use an additional IR, and this is me using the Ode Pro KL52, and you use the zoom, because the IR is often mounted at the side, it won't impede with your sight picture. That's just a little top tip for you. If you were ratting or rabbiting, you'd see that no problem. Rabbiting, that reminds me, I was able to get out. In fact, this was my first night out with it. On a very bright, very cold evening, I was able to get out and take a few rabbits using the Scopemate. Walking on the grass was a little bit like walking on cornflakes, and I was scaring quite a lot of the quarry away. However, I was able to spot a few and take them down. You can just see a muntjac actually there in the background, but this rabbit is at I think 30, what is it? It's 32 yards, perfectly within range, so I take aim and let the 22 LR rip. This is a good example of what I mean about the IR being slightly drowned out here by the zoom on the scope. As I zoom in to take the picture, it gets darker. What I should have done is either increased the intensity or zoomed the light in a little bit. It doesn't seem to have much of a sleep mode, though it does turn on and turn off quite quickly. Every time it does so, it gives you a very bright Scopemate logo, which, although you can't really see it on the film, does shine up quite a lot. So what I was doing is actually turning it on and off. I was covering the screen with my hand so I didn't get that initial white glare. Here you can see a good example of the blackout that I just had with my hand moving in front of the IR, but I zoomed it in, which, as you can then see, did illuminate this rabbit a little bit better, even though I missed it. And as it moves to the left, I catch sight of some more eye shine, only to realise that it's our little muntjac friend we saw a little earlier on. This rabbit here was the furthest one I shot all evening, so I put the crosshairs a tiny bit high on the rabbit's body and ended up striking it in the lower neck. This rabbit was a little over 70 yards. Well, you can't always have everything your own way. I scared more rabbits away than I probably got close to, but nevertheless it was still quite good fun to be out, and as always it's good to play with new toys. Let's head back indoors and somewhere warmer where we can give this thing a good summary. Yep, this is much warmer and cosier. So the Scopemate NVS20 then, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. I'm now going to give you my good and bad, and we'll start with the good, shall we? Well, first of all, price point. This thing's less than £300. There are very few 1080p recording night vision self-contained units on the market around that price. So for anybody looking to get into night vision shooting on a budget, this is certainly worth a consideration. The daytime footage, certainly on the scope that I tested it on, was definitely a little bit sharper than the PARD. In fact, I've been out squirrel shooting today, and I used the PARD to record through the scope, and I'm kind of half wishing I'd actually used this to record it instead. And again, at the price point, it's probably a good £120 cheaper than the PARD. The menu system on the back, very easy to use and quite intuitive. A big plus point for me was the ability to play back what you just recorded on the little screen. It's pretty quick to install as well. You can actually leave the collar permanently on your rifle if you want. It will go in the cabinet with that on no problem. Then simply locate the lugs, give it a half twist or a quarter twist, and it's locked in position. So you can be up and running within a matter of seconds, really. The USB port under the rubber pad here has 3 functions. Clearly it acts as a charging port. You can run the USB cable from this to a computer to have it as a separate monitor, and you can also transfer the files from this to your PC. The built-in IR is zoomable, so you can actually focus the beam down into a little tight spot. That's particularly handy if you're taking shots that a little bit further away, and I would say with the right scope it's probably good enough for ranges between 70 to 100 yards. And the last one for me, because it's detachable, it could theoretically be used as a spotter. It's a little awkward to hold, but nevertheless you can focus the beam, of course, to make the IR more intense, and then simply focus the camera using the wheel underneath. That said, it's not its primary focus. Now, I didn't find it particularly useful as a spotter, so this is probably a good lead into the bits that are not so great about it. So number 1, as a spotter, not brilliant. The collar that it comes with, great idea, but it's not brilliant. It's nowhere near as well made as Eagle Vision's version. That's the one that I've got for my PARD 007, and I've also got an Eagle Vision one of these for my night sight as well. Those are probably some of the best clamps made. Whether or not they'll make one for this unit or not, it's very similar to the PARD 007, but they don't fit. The main reason I don't like it is you seem to have to tighten it up quite a lot to get a snug fit, and even when you do, you sometimes get the nylon insert coming out in various different places, meaning that it's not quite central. The next one is when the unit is on, you actually have a little bit of movement there, so you can probably see that. So it's easy to knock. Now, it doesn't make a massive amount of difference, and it doesn't necessarily shift your impact point much, but I found that a little annoying, especially when I'm pushing the buttons and stuff as well. I've got 3 issues with the screen. The first one is it's quite small. I'm used to looking at the night sight monitor, which is probably 3 times the size of this one. But not only that, the picture is actually narrowed in. If you take a look at the insert clip I'll put in now, when I was using it in the daytime, you could actually see the concrete block I'm looking at through the scope, or on the actual screen, sorry, it looks quite narrow, whereas in reality, it was obviously quite wide. Now, on the playback, that footage is fine, it's more natural, but looking at it at the monitor, it kind of squashes everything in and just makes everything look a little bit narrow, which is a little annoying. When I was shooting off of sticks and I'm shouldering the rifle, this screen here, in particular if you have to wear reading glasses as well, this screen is simply too close to you, so I was having to look back like this. And again, my night sight, as you can see, sits here on this rifle, which is a perfectly good enough distance away. I don't have to readjust my stance or anything like that, whereas again the screen at the back here is a little close. The built-in Wi-Fi for streaming, not very good at all. I mean, is it something you're really going to use? Probably not, so it's not overly important. It was awkward and kept freezing, and the app's pretty crap. And the last bad point for me is the sound is a little tinny. If you can look past that and you just want some quality daytime footage, maybe for a bit of squirrel shooting or rabbit shooting, certainly perfectly adequate for that, but it is a little bit tinny. So my final thought then, would I spend my own money on it and will I use it in the future? I think for the daytime recording, when I'm using my cheaper setup to do the squirrel shooting and maybe some daytime bunny bashing, then I may use it just for the recording capabilities. But at night time and as a spotter, it's not as good as the Pard. It's nowhere near as good as things like the ATN scope. But again, as an entry level night vision product, it's probably worth having in your arsenal if you've got the spare readies. Well, if you found that video useful and informative, then please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't done so already and you want to, please subscribe. For now, take care, stay safe, and as always, happy shooting.